Good morning and welcome. It's great to be here this morning. My name is DiCarlo, and I have the great pleasure today to present and work with my esteemed colleague, Misty Parkinson. Misty is also known as our resident FSA guru. So anything and everything FAFSA related, Misty is the owner of that. So let's go over today's agenda. Today I am going to go over some highlights to the 2017-2018 application enhancements. We're not going to go in a deep dive. We've done that in past conferences and webinars and other sessions. We are going to hit some highlights, however. Misty will go over some preliminary statistics since we started processing on October 1st. And then Misty will go ahead and share some exciting new changes we have planned for the 2018-19 cycle. And she did tease some people at the open forum about those changes. So we hope that you're excited and sitting on the edges of your chairs in anticipation of the news that she has to present. I'll provide some quick updates about the FSA ID, and then Misty will close with some important dates to share with you. So let's go ahead and get started with our 17-18 application cycle enhancements. As you're all aware, on September 14th, 2015, President Obama announced significant changes to the FAFSA process. As a result, we were able to launch the FAFSA 3 months earlier on October 1st. We hope this allows students and families the opportunity to obtain information earlier. As a result of launching the FAFSA earlier, we were also able to launch the demo site earlier. We normally launch the demo site the Sunday before we go live. This past year, we were able to launch the demo site on September 25th. Another big change for this cycle year is the shift in student and family income information being reported. Beginning this past October, information from one tax year earlier, known to many of you as prior tax information, is being collected. This means we are collecting 2015 tax information, and the vast majority of cases, all of that tax information has been filed with the IRS. And since we are using that 2015 tax information, we were able to provide the IRS DRT for use upon the launch of the FAFSA. In years past, folks either had to estimate their taxes, wait until they filed their taxes, and furthermore, the IRS DRT was not available until early February. Also, because of the use of prior information being collected, we took a look at the IRS DRT flow and modified it so that eligible applicants are directed to use the IRS DRT and have to opt out in order to not use it. And lastly, but not related to the FAFSA, early FAFSA or the prior year information be collected, we wanted to highlight that we've broadened the criteria for establishing auto zero and simplifies needs test eligibility by adding Medicaid to the means tested benefits. If you would like to review in more detail all the changes that we made to the 2017-2018 cycle, please refer to our summary of changes to the application processing system guide. You can obtain it here at this link on the screen. You can also go to our resource center, available I think next door in A2. And we have that available for demonstration as well. It's a wonderful resource, and I understand many of you use this to update your policies and procedures at your schools. So we encourage you to take a look at that in detail. Also, as I mentioned earlier, our FAFSA demo site is available too. This is a wonderful resource. We highly encourage you to use this as a resource, also to navigate through the changes that we've made so you can visually see the look and feel and the flow and the changes in some of the wordings and the help text that we provide. This too is available at the Resource Center for your demonstration if you'd like to look at that. This is a map depicting the states with deadline changes. There were a handful of states that made changes to their state deadlines, and roughly a dozen or so states who changed their state deadline as soon as possible after January 1st to as soon as possible after October 1st. The next 5 slides go through in more detail which states made those changes. Please take a look at them at your leisure. I'm not going to go through them in any great detail, but they are here for your reference. And now Misty is going to talk to you about our statistics so far for the 2017-2018 FAFSA application cycle.
Thanks, Lisa. I want to start by saying that I'm very happy to be here, although it still terrifies me to get up here in front of everybody. I really do enjoy telling you about all the hard work that we do back at Federal Student Aid. And I thought, because the timing of the conference didn't change, but the timing of the FAFSA availability did, that perhaps I wouldn't be invited back. So I'm very happy that I was. I get to tell you about some early data that we have for the first month of processing, and then I get to tell you about the exciting changes that we have planned for 18-19. It's very early in our development cycle, so I don't have screenshots, I don't have a lot of detail, but at a high level, I will be sharing those changes that we are planning to make. But first, let's talk about how things are going so far with 2017-18. Who here is from Tennessee?
There's people back there.
Two people. Okay, well, woohoo, to Tennessee. We brought the 17-18 application up at midnight Central Time, 1 a.m. Eastern Time on October 1st, and the very first application that we received was from Tennessee. Oh, sure, now you take credit for being from Tennessee. It was a renewal application, and it was submitted at 1:04 and 51 seconds Eastern Time. The second application, also from Tennessee. As of 1:10 Eastern Time, we had a total of 91 applications that were submitted, and a third of them were from Illinois. Who's from Illinois? Woohoo! Obviously, you guys were really pushing this. As of 1:20, we had 1,035 applications, which was nearly double what we had at the same time on January 1st for 2016-17. And still, nearly a third of them were from Illinois. So good job, Illinois. As of November 28th, we have passed the 4 million mark for applications submitted using FAFSA on the web for 2017-18. So that is awesome. On our very first day, we had 218,625 FAFSA on the web submissions, which is about a 25% increase over the number of applications submitted on January 1st for 2016-17. So things are trending very well. All that information I just gave you is specific to FAFSA on the web. Now we're going to take a look at total applications processed. So this includes FAFSA on the web, FAA Access, and EDE, as well as paper. You can see that through the end of October, we had a total of 2,181,991 total processed applications. About half of them are for applicants ages 19 through 24, and the other half are fairly evenly split between those ages 18 and under and those aged 25 and over. The vast majority of applications were submitted in English. We had only 0.2% of our applications that were submitted in Spanish. About slightly less than half of our applications are first-generation college students. We have 43% for whom neither parents completed college. And then we have 27% where one parent completed and 29% where both parents completed. For Pell eligibility, we're split right in half. We have half of our applications are Pell eligible and half that are not Pell eligible. You can see that we have way more dependent applications at this point than independent, and that's normal for the beginning of the processing year. Our independent students tend to file later in the cycle, but you can see that we're just about a third of the applications are independent and 2/3 are dependent. You can see on the left of the screen, we have for all filers compared to entering freshmen, the number of schools that students are listing on their FAFSA. So for all filers, we have about 58% that list just one school, and then we have 21% that list 5 or more, and 21% that list between 2 and 4 schools. That changes when you're looking at entering freshmen. Entering freshmen, we have a higher percentage that are listing 5 schools or more, which makes sense since at that point they are shopping. Usage of the IRS data retrieval tool is tending higher than in the prior year. We have 56% who used the DRT and 44% that didn't. Our correction volume is low. You can see that we have 11% of corrections compared to all transactions. And just looking at those that are submitted via FAFSA on the web, we have, sorry, I wrote it down. Yeah, our correction submissions total are down by about half compared to the first month of processing last year. So that's looking good. About 3% of total applications have a code of 399, and about 21% are selected for verification, which is lower than what we've seen in the past. So that's good news as well. This map shows the total percentage of applications by state of legal residence. And for those of you who can see, this shows you in a bar chart the distribution of applications by state of legal residence. So you can see California has the highest percentage, which I'm sure doesn't surprise anybody. But you can see Illinois, number 3. Woohoo! Okay, so that's what we're showing so far. I'm very interested to hear what your experiences have been with the early start and the use of prior tax information. So I'm going to take another opportunity to promote the session that we're doing, I believe right after this one, which is a listening session and an opportunity for you all to hear from each other about what you've encountered related to the changes that we made for 2017-18. But I am going to leave 2017-18 behind for now and take a look at what we're planning for 2018-19. Now, it's very, very early, as I said, in our development cycle, so, you know, anything can happen. But right now, these are the things that we are planning to do for the 2018-19 FAFSA. This is one that I teased about a little bit yesterday at the open forum. We have heard over the years the frustrations with those people who use the IRS data retrieval tool, transfer their information into the FAFSA, and then follow our instructions and actually make an adjustment to some of the fields to account for rollovers. We did make a change to FAFSA on the web, I believe it was for 16-17, to specifically tell people who transferred an amount back in any of those fields that if they had a rollover, they should go ahead and subtract that amount, which probably led to even more frustration on your part because you probably saw more instances where people were losing that, you know, that O2 flag that you all like so much. So we tried to figure out what we could do to make that process better. As we talked about it, it occurred to us that we should not be focusing just on rollovers because people do change other fields. We've actually found that the field that people change most often after transferring their data using the IRS data retrieval tool is taxes paid, which makes no sense, and yet they do it anyway. So our overall issue is that people use the IRS data retrieval tool, they transfer their data back, they change something. If they did it on the initial application, it changes the IRS request flag value from a 2 to a 3. If they do it on a subsequent transaction, it changes it from a 2 to a 4. You don't like either of those flags because you have no idea what they changed. So we will be adding some new fields to the ICER to let you know which fields were changed after the tax information was transferred. Thank you. We don't know exactly how this will be communicated yet on the ICER, but there will be more detailed information, obviously, in our publications when we start releasing those. But the good news is you will have access to that information. Another challenge that we've had is related to amended tax returns. The IRS is not able to provide amended tax return information for a number of reasons. And because of that, we have prevented those who filed an amended tax return from even using the IRS data retrieval tool. The problem is that we don't know whether they've amended their tax return or not unless they tell us. So we have a question in FAFSA on the web that asks, did you amend your tax return? We have made changes to that question every year since it's existed to try to make it clearer, and we still have way too many people who are self-reporting that they've amended a return and they are not answering that question correctly. In light of the use of prior, we went back to the IRS and discussed with them what enhancements we might be able to make to the process since we are using older tax year data. And one of the things that we have learned is that while the IRS cannot tell us the data that's on an amended return, they can tell us if they have an amended return on file. So we are going to remove the question in FAFSA on the web that asks if the applicant or parent filed an amended return. We will encourage those people to use the IRS data retrieval tool. We will let them transfer their data back into the FAFSA, and then we will indicate to you on the ICER if the IRS says they filed an amended return. Non-filers. This is another one I teased about yesterday. So currently, somebody who did not file a tax return is not given the opportunity to use the IRS data retrieval tool since there's no information for them to bring back. However, in our discussions with the IRS, we have decided that if we have someone who indicates on the FAFSA that they will not file a tax return, we can create a user experience that encourages them to go to the IRS to get confirmation that they in fact did not file a tax return. So we will do that, and that confirmation, if it is received from the IRS, will be shared with you via the ICER.
Thank you.
So far, rollovers are winning in terms of popularity, I think. Okay, this is another issue that we've had for several years, and I know I'm going to get at least one round of applause from this, Vic, if you're out there. We know that since we made changes to the FAFSA to change references to mother and father to parent 1 and parent 2, and added the additional parent marital status option of both parents unmarried and living together, we've had issues with parents answering the marital status question correctly, and we believe that that is because of the way we reworded it to ask the marital status of the legal parents. So what we are going to do is modify the question so that it will read exactly the way that it did before we made the change to reference legal parents, and instead we will add the legal parent reference only to the response to which it applies, which is so it will be unmarried and both legal parents living together. We're very popular this morning, Lisa.
Notice Jeff didn't get any applause yesterday.
Yeah.
He just threatened with those nasty letters.
We're winning. Okay, The next change that we're making is related to our homeless youth who are completing the FAFSA. Ever since we added these questions to the FAFSA, we have defined youth as applicants who are aged 21 or under. There has been a lot of discussion about these questions and that definition over the years, and so our legal and policy people took another look and determined that we can they redefined, I guess, or reinterpreted the definition of youth. So the FAFSA is going to be changed so that those applicants who are age 22 or 23 and indicate that they are homeless will be able to answer the three homeless questions, 56, 57, and 58. So if somebody age 22 or 23 does have a determination from one of the entities listed in those questions, they will be able to answer yes and go ahead and complete the FAFSA and get an EFC, whereas now they're directed down a special path that leads to you, and you're the ones making the determination as to whether they are homeless or not. Now, if they say that they are homeless but answer no to questions 56, 57, and 58, then their application will still be processed without an EFC, and you will be the ones making the determination. So that part is not changing. All right, we have a few other changes that we're planning. The first one is creating a mobile responsive FAFSA. So I don't know about you, but as much as I love the FAFSA, I have absolutely no interest in completing it in its current format on my phone. However, we do have applicants, a not insignificant number of them, who are completing the FAFSA on the phone, and we would like to make things easier for those students. So we are not going to be redoing the entire website, but we are going to be redoing the application itself so that it will display better on mobile devices. We will also be integrating the college scorecard into FAFSA on the web. We added a link to the college scorecard to the home page for 17-18, but we're taking it several steps further for 18-19. We are going to direct people before they even begin the application to the college scorecard website so that they can, look around and see the information that's available for the schools that they're interested in. They will be able to select schools from the college scorecard website and bring those schools back into the FAFSA and pre-populate the school selection section with those schools. We also will be proceeding with a change that we announced, I think it was a little over a year ago, and then we ended up deferring until 18-19, but for 18-19 we are planning to make the change. And this is with the way that the list of colleges are sent to state grant agencies. A few years ago, as you know, we stopped including the full list of colleges on the ICERs that are sent to schools, but we continued to send that list to state grant agencies. We will continue to send the list to state grant agencies, but the list will be displayed in school code order. Okay, so now I'm going to turn things back over to Lisa, and she'll talk about some of our planned updates for the FSA ID.
Great. Thanks, Misty. I want to take this opportunity to tell you about a few changes that are upcoming for the FSA ID, which will hopefully help users access the FAFSA system as well as our other FSA systems more easily. Since we went live in May 2015, over 40 million users have successfully registered for FSA IDs, and it has been used to log on to FSA sites over 250 million times. Since the FSA ID went live, the FSA ID team has heard a lot of feedback and has strived to figure out what best ways to improve the user experience. The key changes that will be deployed this spring of 2017 are the addition of SMS text functionality and then the simplification of the overall user experience. So let's get into a little bit more detail. This is an illustrative slide showing that users will be able to opt in for SMS text functionality when they log in from the FSA ID login page or when they create an account. This will also allow them to have another option when they forget their username and/or password. And with this, there is no 30-minute waiting period when using the SMS text option. That only applies when you're using the challenge questions. So we're happy to have that, and we think that truly will help simplify matters tremendously. Users will also see several changes in the create account and account management process. When entering their names, the text boxes will be on different lines outlined in black for easy differentiation. The significant date question is now optional, and the question about whether or not they are 13 years or older will be removed. We also added a few additional questions to the pull-down selections to make them more relevant to students. PIN linking will also be removed, as the PIN was only good for 18 months, and any PIN created before the FSA ID would have expired by now. The account management page will be reorganized to assist students in updating or correcting information, and instructions will be updated to reflect the difficulties experienced by students, especially around making sure that the information entered and the information on file with the Social Security Administration are the same. And finally, we're adding some language to protect students against people who attempt to gain access to their FSA ID accounts, along with putting some new frequently asked questions and videos on the help page. And that's it in a nutshell for FSA ID updates. So important dates, Misty?
Okay. So this slide depicts our planned schedule for posting the various user guides and technical references. We plan to start posting our guides in June. We have a bunch that we expect to post in August. We do know how important these guides are to you. I know there was a lot of concern last year with the schedule change, whether we would be able to get these guides out in enough time for them to be useful to you. We've got that first year under our belts. We think that this is a pretty good estimate of when we'll be posting the guides this year, but I want you to know that we do strive to make these things available as early as we can, because we know, the earlier you have them, the earlier you're aware of the changes and can make appropriate plans for them. However, we do want to make sure that the information we're putting out there to you is as accurate as possible. So we do have to reach a certain point in our development schedule where we have the level of detail necessary to be able to update those guides and get them out to you. Right, and this last slide gives you the planned implementation dates of our various sites and systems. The FAFSA on the Web demonstration site, as Lisa said, becomes available the Sunday before we go live with the application. So that will be on September 24th of this coming year. Then FAFSA on the web, the IRS data retrieval tool, and FAA access to CPS online all become available on October 1st, which is a Sunday. Therefore, our first ICER distribution will occur the following day, so that's October 2nd, and that's also when we plan to release at Express for Windows Release 1.0. So believe it or not, we've made it through all of our slides. There are a few things that I want to say before we wrap things up. One is that we believe that the early release of the 1718 FAFSA has been a huge success. We've all worked very hard to make that happen, and we know that that success is in large part due to all of you, particularly with the communication, the outreach that you've done. The volumes that we've seen for early submissions is a testament to how well you have been spreading the word, and want to thank you for that, because we really do appreciate all the effort that you've put into that. The other thing that I want to say is that, I do get very excited to talk about the planned enhancements to the FAFSA, and I really appreciate the positive feedback. It's nice when the changes we're making are popular changes. we do listen to all of the feedback that you provide. We receive suggestions for enhancements via email, via phone calls. Some of you reach out to other people in federal student aid who then pass those suggestions on to us. We receive a lot of suggestions during our the clearance process when we post the draft FAFSA for the 60-day public comment period and the 30-day public comment period. We have administrative priorities that we have to consider. We have, things that other systems are doing that we have to be able to handle. There are a lot of things that we consider when we decide what we're going to do in any given year. But your input is critical to that process, and we do appreciate your willingness to share that feedback with us. So I wanted to thank you for that as well. Anything else, Lisa?
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, looks like you have time for breakfast if you skipped it to get here. So thanks, everybody, for attending.